welcome to the Bare Metal Cyber CISSP Prepcast. This series helps you prepare for the ISC Squared CISSP exam with focused explanations and practical context. In this episode, we are going to explore a critical area of cybersecurity practice, compliance. More specifically, we will look at legal, regulatory, and contractual compliance requirements and how they impact your responsibilities as a cybersecurity professional. Understanding these requirements is essential for anyone working in cybersecurity because compliance is not just about avoiding penalties. It is about building trust, protecting stakeholders, and demonstrating a mature, responsible approach to managing risk. Security measures that are not aligned with legal and contractual obligations can put your entire organization at risk. It is not enough to simply know the technical side of cybersecurity. As a future CISSP, you need to understand how legal requirements, industry regulations, and formal agreements influence how your organization builds, maintains, and audits its security programs. Let us begin by examining the first piece of this puzzle, legal compliance. Legal compliance means following the laws that govern information security, privacy, and data protection in the jurisdictions where your organization operates. These laws can come from national governments, regional alliances, or even local authorities. One of the biggest challenges in legal compliance is that these laws vary widely from one country to another. What is legal in one country may be prohibited in another, and multinational organizations must navigate this complexity carefully. Some of the most well-known legal frameworks include the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR in the European Union. This regulation governs how personal data is collected, processed, and stored, and it places strict rules on consent, access, and breach notification. In the United States, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA, governs how healthcare organizations protect patient data. Another important law is the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which criminalizes unauthorized access to computers and networks. Failing to comply with these legal standards can result in serious consequences. These can include financial penalties, lawsuits, and damage to the organization's reputation. In some cases, individual leaders may even be held personally liable for violations. For this reason, organizations must build legal awareness into their security programs from the start. This means not only knowing what the laws say, but also how they apply to your systems, your data, and your business operations. Maintaining legal compliance is not a one-time activity. Laws change, courts interpret them differently over time, new legislation is introduced. For this reason, organizations must regularly review their compliance strategies, consult legal experts, and adapt policies and controls to remain in alignment with current legal requirements. As a CISSP, part of your job is to help ensure that the systems and processes you manage are consistent with applicable laws and that your team understands how legal risk impacts technical decisions. Let us now move to regulatory compliance. While legal compliance is about following the law, regulatory compliance refers to meeting the requirements of regulatory agencies or governing bodies. These agencies often issue detailed rules or standards that organizations in specific industries must follow to operate legally or maintain certification. Industries such as healthcare, finance, and energy are subject to especially strict regulations due to the sensitivity of the data they handle and the importance of the services they provide. In these sectors, regulatory compliance is not optional, it is mandatory and heavily enforced. Examples of common regulatory frameworks include the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, or SOX, which governs how public companies manage financial data and protect against fraud. The Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, or PCI-DSS, regulates how merchants and payment processors handle credit card information. The Federal Information Security Management Act, or FISMA, applies to federal agencies in the United States and requires the use of NIST standards to manage security risk. Staying compliant with these regulations typically involves more than just technical controls. It also requires documentation, reporting, monitoring, and audits. For example, a company that handles credit card data must document how encryption is implemented, track who has access to systems, and produce regular reports for auditors. Non-compliance may result in fines, legal action, or even the loss of the ability to operate in that sector. As a CISSP, you must be prepared to help your organization develop and maintain a security program that aligns with relevant regulations. This includes helping to design controls, prepare for audits, and respond to regulatory inquiries. You will also play a role in building processes that ensure continuous compliance, because like legal standards, regulations evolve and must be reviewed regularly. Next, let us talk about contractual compliance. This aspect of compliance is sometimes overlooked, but it is just as important as legal and regulatory obligations. Contractual compliance means meeting the specific security and privacy obligations outlined in formal agreements with clients, vendors, partners, and service providers. Contracts can be very specific. They might define which encryption standards must be used, how data must be stored, what kind of logging and monitoring is required, or how quickly breaches must be reported. These terms are binding, and failure to meet them can result in serious consequences such as penalties, loss of business, or lawsuit. For example, a cloud service provider might agree to perform annual security assessments, maintain specific uptime levels, and notify the customer within 24 hours of any data breach. If the provider fails to meet any of these terms, they may owe financial penalties or lose the contract altogether. Contractual compliance often goes beyond baseline legal or regulatory requirements. It is not uncommon for business partners to require more stringent controls than the law demands. As a result, organizations must understand exactly what they have agreed to and make sure their internal systems and processes are capable of meeting those expectations. Part of your role as a CISSP may involve reviewing contracts, advising procurement teams, and ensuring that your organization can meet its obligations before signing an agreement. You may also be involved in tracking compliance with those terms over time and supporting internal or third-party audits. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. As organizations mature, they often integrate their compliance efforts across legal, regulatory, and contractual domains. Rather than managing each set of requirements separately, they build unified compliance frameworks that address all requirements in a streamlined and efficient way. Some of the most widely used frameworks for this purpose include ISO/IEC 2711, the NIST 853 Control Catalog, and COBIT. These frameworks provide structured ways to manage security policies, assess risk, and evaluate compliance. They allow organizations to align their security posture with best practices, while simultaneously addressing overlapping requirements from multiple regulators and partners. Integrated compliance programs typically feature centralized oversight where a dedicated compliance office or team coordinates all activities. They use common metrics to track progress, uniform procedures for audits, and shared documentation repositories. This reduces duplication of effort, increases efficiency, and makes it easier to demonstrate compliance to external stakeholders. To succeed in this environment, you must be able to understand how different standards map to each other, how to avoid conflicting controls, and how to present your organization's compliance status in a way that is clear and defensible. Finally, we need to talk about maintaining continuous compliance. Compliance is not a box you check once and forget. It is an ongoing commitment that requires proactive management, regular updates, and sustained attention. Organizations that succeed in compliance often use automated monitoring tools to keep track of changes in system configuration, access control violations, and policy exceptions. These tools provide real-time dashboards and automated alerts that make it easier to stay on top of evolving risks and requirements. Regular risk assessments are also a cornerstone of continuous compliance. By reassessing your risk landscape regularly, you can ensure that your controls remain appropriate and that new threats are not being overlooked. Staff training is another key ingredient. Employees at every level need to understand the organization's compliance obligations and how their behavior contributes to meeting them. Internal and external audits provide a structured way to verify compliance, uncover weaknesses, and implement improvements. These audits should be seen not as a burden, but as a valuable opportunity to test assumptions, identify blind spots, and refine procedures. Ultimately, maintaining compliance is about culture. An organization that treats compliance as a shared responsibility, supported by leadership and embedded into everyday operations, is more likely to succeed over time. As a CISSP, you can lead by example, provide education, and help create a culture where compliance is not just enforced, it is embraced. Thanks for joining the CISSP Prepcast by Bare Metal Cyber. Visit baremetalcyber.com for additional episodes, robust study resources, and dedicated support in your journey towards CISSP certification. Keep your compliance knowledge sharp, remain proactive in your approach, and we'll continue guiding you every step of the way.